will explain momentarily. But we'll start with the football, because as first reported by Fox Sports and then confirmed by ESPN, Mike McCarthy will replace Jason Garrett as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. McCarthy stayed at the home of Cowboys owner Jerry Jones on Saturday night. And as Adam Schefter reported, once you stay at Jerry's house, he doesn't lose his guy. Here's Ed Werder with more.
When I asked the team source what the Cowboys needed from their next coach to provide that was lacking under Garrett, the list included 3 crucial items: fear, accountability, and discipline. McCarthy should provide some, if not all of those. Plus, he offers legitimacy and credibility.
Well, let's talk about credibility. This is what Jerry Jones was looking for: playoff success. Since 2006, only Bill Belichick has more playoff wins than McCarthy, while the Cowboys have just 3 postseason wins over that span of time. And so let's bring it out to the table for the first time today, and I will start with the former Cowboy sitting at our desk. This was announced like 2 minutes after our show ended yesterday, so I've not had a chance to hear from you. Did they hire the right person?
It feels that way, G. And you know what I've been talking about with the Dallas Cowboys. Will you allow Mike McCarthy to do his job? That's the number one question. Because if you do, we've seen him have success. Now, there were some things that transpired at the end of his run in Green Bay that makes you question this. And it was only 2 guys interviewed. So they all obviously identified Mike McCarthy as their guy. It was one of those non-splashy, totally against what the Cowboys are used to doing, making headlines. I mean, even though they did it on a Monday when we supposed to be talking about games being played, I have no problem with that. Like I thought about yesterday, allow him to do his job so it can be. If it doesn't work, it's because Mike McCarthy lacked in his ability to get this team where they wanted to go, as opposed to what we did the last 2 to 3 months talking about, why is Jerry saying we have to win? Why is Jason Garrett in this position? Why is he talking while a team is still in contention for a playoff?
But it's important to point out to people that this isn't Mike McCarthy of old. Like, they're getting a new version of Mike McCarthy. If everyone wants to tie what the Cowboys are getting to what happened at the end of Green Bay, 2 things. One, Mike McCarthy has spent this last year kind of reinventing himself. He's locked himself in a room and watched a ton of tape of kind of where the NFL is transitioning offensively. So that's a big part of it. And 2, everyone's going to go, well, listen, Mike McCarthy left the Packers and all of a sudden they won. Well, all of a sudden the Packers decided to spend money in free agency as well this past year. That's why they're in the playoffs. Credit Matt LaFleur, but they never did that when Mike McCarthy was their head coach. That's one of the reasons they've had their success this year. So the Cowboys are getting the old version of Mike McCarthy that won 125 games and 8 straight years in the playoffs and all that, but they are getting a much more modern coach when it comes to analytics, scheme, and how to develop quarterbacks.
I mean, that's what the great coaches do, right? They evolve. And, you know, he understood that he had to evolve. And what I always hate is when coaches get hot, get fired, and they go right back in because you don't learn those lessons that, got you in that position. The fact that he was able to sit back, take a deep look at it, say, okay, I need to get more modern, dive into these analytics, and also sit down and talk to other guys where the game is going so he can make that transition so that he can relate to the modern day player as well. You know, I like, some of the people that he's adding to his staff, Mike Nolan. When you think about Dallas, it's not a talent thing. It's an accountability and discipline thing, a performance thing. He's a guy that's going to come in there and doesn't have to sell himself because he has the resume that's going to earn the respect of that locker room immediately.
And you mentioned that it's not a flashy pick or it's not a sexy pick. Yeah. To me, this is the Zach Martin, Johnny Manziel thing. Years ago, when everybody wanted the Cowboys to draft Johnny Manziel, and we all thought they would, they did the sensible thing. They took a guard that we deemed boring, and now he's one of the best guards in football. And so this isn't the sexy hire, and it's a boring hire, but this is a very good hire for the Cowboys.
If you're Dak Prescott, how are you feeling about McCarthy being hired?
I can't be more excited. I mean, this is a coach that's been around 3 Hall of Fame quarterbacks, right? He got Joe Montana on the back end of his career. Then he developed or was part of the development of Brett Favre, and then Aaron Rodgers. At the end of the day, this is the perfect person for Dak Prescott to truly go to becoming one of the top 5 to 7 quarterbacks in the NFL. At the same time, there's no excuses. There's no more excuses for Dak because, Marcus, you've sat here and said the only change that has not happened in Dallas in the last 4, 5, 10 years has been the head coach. Yep. The head coach has now changed. So Dak needs to take this team.
You and Bart almost made me curse, though, because I got to see if Mike McCarthy has changed.
Sure.
I have to find out, because we know coaches get used to reverting back when things are not going.
Right.
If these analytics and all of this new offense and this creativity is not working out, we know what Mike McCarthy is going to go to.
Right.
That's all from a coaching standpoint. That's what I have to see, because I'm scorned. Okay, guys, I'm very scorned about what I watched transpire in Dallas for a long time. If he reverts back to that because it gets tight, then this is not going to be a good situation. It gets tight in Dallas.
Well, obviously it does. Let's talk about the other big story that was happening yesterday and continues to be a big topic for us. Alabama quarterback Tua Tagovailoa announced his decision on Monday that he'll skip his senior season. He's entering the 2020 NFL Draft. I talked with him yesterday. One of the big interesting factors in all this is the hip. Here's what he had to say about the timeline on his injury. The timeline here is what for the hip recovery for you?
It's about 3 months. Dr. Rout, who did my surgery in Houston, had said so.
And when can you start picking up a football again?
Oh, I've been having the football.
And what have you been doing with it?
Just throwing it. You know, I could be sitting down throwing it. Probably like the 2-week mark, I was probably just throwing. Yeah, but not like, you know, swinging, like my body, just tossing it. That's it.
And when can you really start to throw again?
Oh, I don't know. I've been standing and throwing and then sitting and throwing. But probably after the 3-month mark, when we know that the bone is healed, you know, and everything is good with the cartilage, you know.
So that 3-month mark, of course, sometime in February. The question of whether or not Tua will be able to reach the same heights he did in college will be a major talking point up until the draft. He finished as Alabama's all-time leader in 300-yard passing games and total touchdowns responsible for, where he scored nearly 100 of them in just 2 years of action. When he's healthy, Greeny, we know that he's been so good.
Well, look, everybody loves him, so that we don't gloss over that part of it, right? The personality, the intangibles, all of that. So no one wants to be sitting here bringing up any of the negative stuff on the day that he's made the decision that I think all of us thought was the right one for him. But there were two overwhelming question marks, it would seem, about him. The first of them is his ability to stay healthy. This was not by any means the first injury that he has had. And if there's one thing we've seen historically, players who get hurt in college tend to get hurt again in the pros. So if you had to bet your career as a general manager on this guy staying healthy for a decade, would you be willing to do it?
Well, it depends on what general manager I am and what's my security. I would be if everything around me thought healthy about it and he's checking out, because this guy has elite traits. Like, he is one of the greatest passers college football has ever seen. And because of the way that the CBA is kind of written out, it's not as much of a risk as it used to be when taking a quarterback somewhere in the first round. I don't think Tua's going to go number one, no. But Tua's going to be a top 12 pick. And someone is going to go trade up for Tua to redshirt him for the year. And I would not be shocked if the family comes into play. If his family navigates some moving parts somehow to get a team that they want Tua to go to that will handle Tua the right way to come up and draft him.
I mean, general managers don't look that far out anymore. General managers doesn't have the job security that he used to have. I think they're thinking, hey, can I get 5 years out of him so I can extend my career and make sure that I can be tied to a generational talent that I can maybe have an opportunity to win. When coaches come in, general managers, they get 5 to 6 year contracts. So listen, the arm talent is too good to pass up. You don't want to be one of those teams that say, hey, I passed on Randy Moss, I passed on Deshaun Watson, I passed on Pat Mahomes. So you know the talent is there. You want to trust your medical staff. You want to have them in, have them evaluated, and see, hey, what do we think? How long do you think we have with this guy?
Which brings us to the other question here, and I will turn to my two SEC correspondents here, because it also does seem, as one who watches it from a comparative distance relative to the two of you, that with the exception of the game against Georgia, where he came in and set the world on fire in the national championship game, if there's been a knock.
Gee, you don't have to finish. I said it. We haven't seen Tua perform against really good teams at the level we saw him play against opponents that weren't even close in comparison to what the talent was at Alabama. With that being said, going back to what Dan said, he does have elite qualities, right? So that's what everybody's banking on. Georgia, Clemson, against LSU. I'm talking about previous years is when he threw his first touchdown against guys that you see on a week in, week out basis on Sunday. Here's my best comparison before I let it go. You either going to be the Miami Dolphins or you're going to be the New Orleans Saints. Your medical staff going to either say Drew Brees' shoulder won't be able to throw the ball anymore, or you're going to be sitting on the other side as the Saints with the possibility of getting in the playoffs every year and having a chance to win. I think that's who Tua will be. He manipulates the pocket really well. He does not have to be a superior athlete because he is a superior